Okay. You can e-file or mail the returns. If you mail them, you should use what's called the RSI codes. Okay. We talked about the review, claim procedures. These are something called an RFI, request for information, that we see a lot. So this is a standard letter. It says for each activity claim, details of each SR&ED project, including hours claimed for each individual person or contract per activity per month. So these are the kinds of requests that we're getting. If you don't have those systems, that's where things can start to get dicey. A lot of people are starting to get a little upset when they see all the things that they're asking for. All right. The other big thing that they're asking for all the time, contemporary evidence of due diligence activities and the state of available technology. So again, if they don't see that in the descriptions, standard question, and this is how they're knocking a lot of claims out. Okay. We talked about budget. There's reporting on the preparer fee. So if you pay someone to do an SR&D claim for you, you actually have to disclose on the form how much you expect to pay them. I think that's actually a good idea because there was articles in the Globe and Mail that billions of dollars were going to tax preparers. I don't think that was truthful. So how are you going to refute that unless you ask for this and then you have evidence after a couple of years that that's not the case? Okay. What if we go to court and fight it out? What if we want to fight it out? Hey, no problem. Basically, the negotiation process, I would call it, is first what happens is when they're going to deny a claim, they usually don't just deny it. They say, here's what we propose. We're going to write you a letter with our proposed adjustments. We call it a 30-day letter in the industry. And you have 30 days to respond to this. And this is a time where you should really mobilize. Do your best effort. Get together whatever you can. File that in. And try to convince the reviewer to change his or her opinion at that point. Okay? If you just can't do it, you can request something called a second administrative review. And it usually takes about 6 months. It's up to each district if they want to do that. They don't have to. There's no obligation. Some districts like to, and others not so much. Right? So that's an optional step. You can then file them. So once you get your assessment, you can file an objection. Usually it takes at least a year or two. There's about a 2 to 3 year response time for objections, I'm finding, in SR&E. They're all sitting in Toronto West. Or you can wait 90 days from filing an objection and appeal to the Tax Court of Canada. Okay? There's two methods you can go. You can go what's called a general procedure, which takes minimum usually 2 to 3 years or more, or you can do something called an informal procedure. When you go through the general procedure, it usually goes pretty fast until you get this part called discovery here, right? And this is where there's no set time limit. So it can go on and on and on and take years. It often does. If you go the informal procedure, this is all sped into probably an 8 or 9 month period. So what will happen here is, if we go informal procedure, we don't need to hire a lawyer. You can represent yourself, or your accountant can represent you, or anyone who's familiar with the act itself. But we have to limit the amount to $25,000 federally per year. So it'll work out to about $40,000 if we factor in all the Ontario credits a year. So that's your limit. And it's kind of like small claims court for taxes is how I would equate it. You go in, you bring all your evidence with you, and the judge makes a decision right there. And there's a $100 application fee. Yes, Peter?
Can you bypass number 3 and go directly to number 4 from number 2?
No, you have to file an objection, and you have to wait 90 days before you're legally allowed to apply to the Tax Court of Canada. Now, they seldom get back to you within 90 days, so it's kind of a moot point, but you do have to wait a minimum 90 days from the point you filed the objection before you can move it up to a Section 165 appeal. Yes? If
you win at the informal level, can you then go to the general level?
I don't believe so. Yeah, it's right in the act that you've elected to limit it because of that. But I'm saying that if it's going to take 3 or 4 years, and this is an issue of every year, maybe even taking a hit this year, you claimed 100, but you only got 40, but now you got a ruling that says it was R&D. I'm saying that your chance of being challenged the next year by the same reviewers is pretty slim. So maybe you get the next 2 or 3 years in. So it ends up in your favor. Again, to go to the general procedure, you're probably looking at $25,000 to $50,000 up front with no guarantees in legal fees. So a lot of clients, that plus the time frame, it's not worth it for them.